The difference between role and cluster role is the number one RBAC mistake that breaks production clusters. Let's clear this up in 90 seconds. First, the fundamental difference, scope. A role is namespace-scoped, meaning it only exists within a single namespace and can only grant permissions to resources in that namespace. A cluster role, on the other hand, is cluster-wide. It exists at the cluster level and isn't tied to any specific namespace. This scope difference determines what resources each can access. A role can only grant access to namespace resources like pods, services, and deployments within its namespace. Cluster role can do that too, but it's the only one that can grant access to cluster-scoped resources like nodes, namespaces themselves, or persistent volumes. These resources exist at the cluster level, so only cluster role can touch them. Here's where it gets interesting. Cluster role has unique binding flexibility. You can bind it with a cluster role binding for cluster-wide access, or bind it with a regular role binding to limit it to a specific namespace. This makes cluster role reusable across multiple namespaces without duplicating definitions. So when do you use each? Use role when you need to grant permissions for a specific team or application within one namespace. Use cluster role when you need cluster admin privileges, access to cluster-scoped resources, or when you want to define a reusable permission set that can be applied across multiple namespaces. Remember, role for namespace permissions, cluster role for cluster-wide or reusable access patterns. Master this, and you'll avoid the most common RBAC pitfalls. Practice more questions like this at interviewmentor.ai. Want to get better at answering questions like this? With Interview Mentor, you practice real interview questions out loud. You get personalized feedback and a grade on every answer, and you can track your improvement over time.